Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. We are once again in Stormworks. We're working on our carrier. We're doing something a little different with this one. We're going to start out with some gameplay. For a lot of the people that are new to the series, I'm just going to show off kind of what the main purpose of this ship is, where the main concept came from. So I'm just going to park this down on the beach. We're going to go bring it onto the boat, and we're going to bring it up to the top deck. So we're just going to, like I said, start out with some gameplay. I figured you guys would like that, but if you guys do like the series, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Keep coming back for more. I'm going to keep making these videos. The carrier is getting closer and closer to done. I'm going to have to take a little bit of a break coming up here soon, unfortunately, for some personal reasons. But the videos will keep coming. I'm going to get that all planned ahead. But yeah, guys, I'm going to quit rambling. We'll kind of just start talking about what we're doing. So this barge right here is removable. So part of the floor in the hangar bay is removable, and it's tethered via an electric cable. Sorry about the darkness. I know it's a little dark. That's my bad. But so essentially this barge, you can connect it to the ship and drive it around remotely, and it makes landing vehicles very easy. So that's kind of the point of this. We're just going to take that little scooter dune buggy thing that I made. If you guys haven't seen that, I do have a video on that build. It's called the Jackal. But yeah, we're just going to load this up. I'm not going to strap it down or anything. That thing's pretty small. And we're just going to bring it right back on over to the carrier. And it's funny I say carrier. Really, this thing, I know a lot of you point out in the comments, it's not really a carrier. It's more of an amphibious assault vehicle. And you guys are totally right. I call it a carrier just because, you know, carriers are fun. Haha. Basically the same thing for our purposes. You know, it's also just kind of easier to say that than amphibious assault vehicle every single time. So we're just calling it a mini carrier. But yeah, you know, we're going to bring this into the hangar deck. I've done a little bit of detailing. This is definitely not near done, by the way, guys. I know a lot of you seem to think it might be pretty close to done. It's not really close to done in these videos. But yeah, we're going to bring this up to the top deck, and then later in this video, we're going to start detailing the engine room quite a bit. The engine room in this ship is massive, so we got to put quite a bit of time into that space, and I want to make a lot of it usable and not just kind of have fake decorations and that kind of stuff all over. So you guys will see, we're going to get into that. We're going to do a lot of like the lighting and walkways and that kind of stuff today, and then the engine room will probably get like another third or fourth pass for detailing. But yeah, I mean, the nice thing about this ship is honestly most of it is really hangar, so there's not a ton of interior space, but it is a larger ship. Like I said in the beginning episodes, this thing is basically designed to be as big as we can make it without modifying the workbench. That's kind of was the other main goal. So I wanted to have that landing barge in the back, and I wanted to make a carrier that didn't need a modified workbench because I find that annoying. But I also go a little overboard with detailing on my builds sometimes, so all of the space on the inside of the ship is going to be used. And when I say all of it, I mean you are going to be able to get to pretty much every single spot inside the hull. There's nothing that's really closed off. The only spaces that are really closed off are for either fuel or for microcontrollers. And the microcontrollers, those spaces even have doors so you can get in there and then repair the microcontrollers. So we're not going to waste any space. That's why this ship's going to have so much detailing to do. That's why there's so much to do and why the series is going to be quite a long one. But, you know, I've been saying that from the get-go. We have some other series going on. Also, if you guys, you know, if you're new to the channel, haven't checked those out, I'm building a giant sand crawler also while we're working on this one. But you know, as far as what I'm doing right here, so this is not really that necessary. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting door frames in the ground, and I'm trying to essentially simulate like a panel that you would be able to remove to service the engine. You're not going to be able to in this just because Stormworks doesn't really require that kind of thing, and there's enough access to get to the engines. But a lot of times when I make my engine rooms and I design the engine setups, I kind of try to have this in mind. A lot of times with repairing engines, when you get into repairs this size, you need cranes overhead and you need access to the top of the engine. A lot of times if the engine fails, you're not going to replace the entire engine. You'll replace very large parts of it, which is why you need a crane. You know, in this case, we have all the ducting over top, which obviously that would get in the way in real life. You know, some disassembly is required and stuff, but again, it's not really, I'm not putting a lot of thought into that. I just kind of like to have the panels there, but in real life, that's something that does need to be thought about. You need to be able to remove the engines from the ship without, you know, pretty much tearing the entire ship apart until up until a certain scale. Once engines get or ships get big enough, that's not really feasible. But you know, realistically speaking, this ship isn't that big, so the engine should be somewhat serviceable. And we have a giant hangar bay above it with cranes overhead, so it's not super unrealistic to think that you'd be able to pull this wall off and, you know, maybe replace like a piston or, you know, part of a cylinder head or something like that. But, you know, again, I'm just kind of rambling. These are the silly little things that I think about when I go to decorate my ships. So I try to make them look a little bit more realistic through detailing like that. That's also why you will see, as I detail this up a little bit more, you're going to see a lot of random little walkways everywhere. And that's, again, because you need to be able to get to all parts of the engine in real life to repair all parts of the engine. In real life, they're going to have pumps all over, hoses all over, all sorts of, you know, line connections, that kind of stuff. So you're going to be able, or you're going to have to be able to get to that kind of stuff to repair it, you know, little repairs. But more importantly, you know, you're also not going to have the engines crammed up right up against a wall or other stuff like that for not only safety reasons, but also heat reasons. So there's got to be some sort of spacing. You can't just, you know, put the engine right up against walls and box it in. You know, eventually that's going to heat soak and become a really bad thing. Again, this doesn't really apply to Stormworks too much. I'm just overcomplicating things. You'll see later on we're also going to cool down the engine room. So I'm gonna add basically an air conditioning system inside the engine room to cool down the ambient temperature as well, which will help keep our engines cool. This is a not really necessary feature as well while I'm rambling on about that kind of stuff. The nice thing about that is in Stormworks, a lot of times you'll walk into an engine room and you start to overheat, the person does. This will hopefully prevent that to an extent. So I've noticed a lot of times you can run these engines, you know, a good 15-20 minutes, come down into the engine room, and the engine room is still not so hot that it's overheating your guy, which is kind of cool. I'm going to stop rambling about useless features, and I'm going to let the time lapse roll a little bit, and then we'll come back and I will talk a little bit about the details we've done and the details that I plan on adding. All right, so the engine room quite literally never ends. And I kind of talked about that in the beginning. The engines are actually mounted a little bit in front of the center of mass, as crazy that is. So they're very, very, very far forward, which for spacing reasons, we couldn't get it under the barge that kind of deploys. And I wanted to have these big engines, and I wanted to, actually have room and not cram them in like I spoke earlier about. So that's kind of why they're so far forward. You'll notice that there's a huge drive shaft, but a lot of the railings that we just had, that's all access towards the aft part of the ship in the engine room, where there's a lot of pipes, there's a lot of cooling, that kind of stuff going on. So, I mean, you have just in front of us bilge, ballast, 2 different fuels, a drive shaft. So there's a lot of stuff going on back there. I wanted to have access to it, and I wanted to make sure people had access to, the starter motors and the generators and the gearboxes. And later on, there's going to be 2 more generators down there and a place to refill oxygen bottles. So there's going to be a lot of stuff down here. There's even going to be a remote control station where you can manually override the rudders and the throttle and clutches and that kind of stuff. So you can see we have these really, really long hallways. And this is kind of the access points that I was talking about. So you can get in here, you can get behind the drive shaft, you can see all the pumps. There's going to be a lot more stuff going on in here later. Again, along that wall that we just walked along is where I'm going to put the generators. There's going to be, again, it's part of the air conditioning unit. It's going to go back there. And then along this wall to the right, the outside wall, is going to be where you can go refill some of your oxygen diving tanks, that kind of thing. But yeah, we got these really long hallways. We got to get it all lit up. And obviously, it's going to have to get another go around or 2 of decorating. The room is just so big, I can't get it into one episode. But I don't do it all at once, so don't worry. You're not going to just get bombarded with like four videos in a row of us just working on the engine room. But yeah, I think these railings for the most part look good. There's a lot of kind of blank space on the walls right now, and we'll kind of fill that in with mostly paint. Later on, I kind of paint like these squares, and just that different little addition of color and another shape kind of fills up the walls a lot. You guys will see later on. But right now, I'm working on the lights. These hallways are really long, so each hallway is going to have 2 different, actually I think 3 different light zones. That's how long they are. They're almost longer than, or I think they're almost half the ship. So got to get some light in there. I'm designing it to have multiple zones in that way because the room is so large that I don't want you guys to press one button and then turn on 40 lights and lag your computer. So there's going to be a lot of light switches everywhere in the ship for that reason. I'd rather have you guys have the option to turn whatever you want on and off than for it to be either automatic and or it just to be too much with not enough controls. A lot of times the light, I think, can get really overbearing, especially like in my hangar, there's a ton of lights, but you probably won't want to have all of them on at once. But I just kind of like having the option. And it looks good with all of them. I like it for kind of like thumbnail reasons, that kind of stuff. But for gameplay reasons, the spotlights do lag a little bit. And I notice that a lot of people don't really like playing with the spotlights on. So I totally understand that. Another thing that I like to do in the engine room, and you'll kind of pick up on this in a lot of my builds and a lot of my ships, the lights in here are going to be a different color, and I think you can add a lot of detail to the room with that. I've talked about this in the past a little bit. So like in this case, I went with like a slightly tannish hue for the lights, and that's because the room itself is very gray. There's little pops of color here or there for, looks like those aren't wired up correctly, but there's little pops of color here or there for like mechanical stuff, but the room's very gray. So if you add that kind of the orange makes it kind of a lot softer than like with a blue light. It would feel very, very kind of whitewashed and cold is one way to put it. But I didn't want it to feel that way. I wanted the lights to feel like they were a little dim, a little old, don't really get used much, maybe a little dirty. It's an engine room, so you're not going to have, you're just not going to have as many lighting or lights everywhere as you would in, like a living space. It's just not going to happen. So that's kind of the thought with that. I think that's one detail that a lot of people can apply to their builds that help a lot. Just, play around with the colors on the inside of your ship a lot. They can really change how the inside of the ship itself feels. But that comes to just about the end of this one, guys. So if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys staying. If you like the build, again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Come back for more. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.